Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. After my last episode, I had a little conversation with Ungod, and he helped to show me that the ore processing that I set up in the last episode was probably not ideal. And this again goes to me trying to use GregTech like other technology mods. I have to keep forcing myself to remember that GregTech has got a lot of differences. So basically, I think I had two problems with what I was doing and how I was thinking, and they have to deal with overclocking and power. So I want to talk about the overclocking first, and this is a quote from the Wikipedia page. And it says, if a recipe has a minimum required voltage within a lower tier than that of the machine, the recipe is overclocked. Overclocked recipes are carried out at double normal speed, double normal total energy, and thus quadruple normal energy per tick. Recipes can be overclocked multiple times if a machine is more than one tier above a recipe's tier. So that's the important part. Let's go over here to the plate bender and use this as an example. This is the MV, the medium voltage bending machine. So this recipe here, for example, turning 3 aluminum rods into some rebar, uses 15 volts, and that's low voltage. That's the low voltage tier. So because this is the medium voltage machine, it's one tier above, it means that this recipe would be overclocked. And so it would use twice as much power. So instead of using 750 EU, it's going to use 1500 EU, and it's going to do it twice as fast. So that's what it means. Now, if I had the high voltage plate bending machine, a metal bending machine, then it would double and then double again. So it would 750 times 2 to 1500 times 2, it would use 3000 EU, but it would carry it out in 1/4 of the time. Now, overclocking is not, or I should say, overclocking is a fairly common concept in technology mods. This mod pack has Ender.io, and Ender.io has, Ender.io has the capacitor upgrades, which probably, here they are. They look different than the last time I used Ender.io. And so you can use these capacitor upgrades in Ender.io to sort of overclock things. As you can see here, it increases the energy storage and speed or range of a machine. That's what these things do. And so if you put one of these capacitors into one of the Ender.io machines, it will operate faster, but it would also use more power. That's kind of the idea of overclocking. Thermal expansion has some items, and I don't remember what they're called, but they can also be put into a machine that will make it operate faster using more power. So overclocking is a very common thing in technology mods, but the difference is probably the fact that the overclocking in GregTech is done by default. So for example, in Ender.io, let's go back to Ender.io real quick. If I were to make, say, the sag mill, wherever it's at, one of the machines that processes things in there, the sag mill, there you go. I could make the sag mill operate faster using more power by putting in a capacitor upgrade. But if I don't put in a capacitor upgrade, then the sag mill will operate at its default settings. So the difference there then with GregTech is if you look at, say, the bending machines, is that they come in these different tiers: low voltage, medium voltage, high voltage, extreme voltage. I think that's insane voltage, IV. And so by making, say, an extreme voltage machine and putting it down and then putting something in it that uses a low voltage recipe, I'm automatically overclocking it 3 times. So I don't have the option to say, no, I don't want to overclock things like you would in the other mods by simply not putting those capacitor upgrades or those things from thermal expansion into the machine. So that's the concept that I kind of misjudged on things, because I think it's a common thing to think, well, as I mentioned before, certain recipes will require the higher machine. So this is a 96 volt recipe, which means you couldn't do it in the low voltage bending machine. You would have to have a medium voltage bending machine to do it. So my thought process was that I need a medium voltage bending machine. I'm going to make a medium voltage bending machine, and there's no point in having the low voltage bending machine because now I have the medium voltage one. But there might be a point, because now all of those low voltage recipes are being overclocked in this medium voltage machine. And when it came to with the processing machines, as far as making stuff, that might not be as big of a deal. But when it came to the ore processing, it was a little bit more of a deal, because I made an advanced thermal centrifuge, I made an advanced ore washing machine. These are all medium voltage machines, and I was using the medium voltage machines, which was then using twice as much power, 4 times as much energy per tick, and just draining power a lot and constantly, and not being maybe very effective. And I made those machines because I thought, well, I knew that they operated faster, and I thought that that would make my ore processing quicker and go by quicker. But in reality, that doesn't work out so good. And the reason is because it kind of ties into my second problem, which has to do with power. In a lot of the technology mods, you will work your way to a point where you're just making a ton of power. So much power so quickly, and just getting so much power that you can't even use it all fast enough, right? But in GregTech, you really can't do that. I have this turbine, which is generating the majority of my power. I still have the rotors from the hydrokinetic energy outside. They're also generating some power, and I'm working on some other methods of power. But, if you read in the forums, and this mod pack does have the big reactors mod pack in it, but the big reactors only generate RF power. But you will see in the forums a lot of people talking about generating 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 or more RF per tick, and just having so much power that they can't even use it. And if you have essentially what amounts to what can be considered to be an infinite amount of power, because you're making so much of it that you can't even use it all, then of course you don't mind overclocking your recipes 1, 2, 3, or 4 times, because you just have so much power, you might as well do it. But in my situation, using GregTech and not having a lot of power, it really doesn't make sense for me to overclock those recipes. It really makes more sense for me to only use the tier of machine necessary to get the job done and save that power, because it's way too precious for me to be using trying to process ores faster when I shouldn't be doing that. So hopefully that makes sense, and that line of reasoning makes sense to everybody. If you haven't used GregTech, it really is a different way of doing things and a different way of looking at your power usage, your overclocked machines, what you want to do and what you don't want to be doing. So as you might have noticed back upstairs, I tore out all of my ore processing. This whole area has been decimated. I still need to clean it up. I do know that needs to be done, but I haven't gotten to that stage yet. And obviously I've just got a mess of stuff here. And what I did instead was I spent a lot of time building machinery, and I've brought my ore processing down here. And so what I have is I have 4 lines of processing. So I have 4 basic macerators, not using an advanced macerator. I have 4 basic ore washing plants, again, not using advanced ones, 4 basic thermal centrifuges, and that does my ore processing. I only have 1 forge hammer. The forge hammer is really fast and really quick, so it keeps up with the ore processing. And then of course I still have the packager, which will combine all the dusts into the tiny dusts, I should say, into the regular size dust. And so this, even though it's 4 machines, it's the power usage is a little bit more efficient because I'm not using, I'm not overclocking the machinery to perform the tasks. So it may seem like, oh, you just swapped an advanced machine for 4 basic machines and that's basically the same, but it is in some ways, but it's also not. So hopefully, that kind of makes sense. But this is also a little bit better because it allows me to process ores probably a little bit quicker than I was with just one set of processing machines. And so these are basically set up as you might expect, just like before. The wiring for everything is under the ground. So here, of course, I have the type filter, which feeds the macerators, and there's just like before, there's a type filter for each set of machines that tell it what to do or what to send to it. And so the machines process the stuff. And I also added, this was Ungod's suggestion, I added a battery buffer for each machine. Each machine has its own battery buffer, which kind of helps make sure that it doesn't run out of power. And I even then have another battery buffer here. I went a little bit overkill on the battery buffers probably, but that's okay. And of course, everything is being fed from my high voltage power that comes in both from the turbine and from the rotors out there. It comes into there, and then that goes off and feeds the power to all of the machinery. And then I have some item conduits. I haven't made any pretty conduit facades. I really like the conduit facades from Ender.io. I love the fact that you can make them look like any block, and then you can put them down and it hides them. But in a lot of ways, I also kind of like the industrial look. Like, I like the fact that this looks like machinery. So I may not hide those conduits because I kind of like the fact that they're there as part of the machinery. So the conduits take the items upstairs, and I spent a little bit more time, probably too much time, building a storage room on the other side of this. And I'm going to be moving stuff around later, but I have built this storage room. Ta-da! And hopefully, let's see. Oops, that's not what I wanted. What's the button that, there you go. Now, hopefully you recognize what this is. If you don't recognize what this is, take a chemistry class. Google periodic table of the elements, and you'll see what it is. I made a periodic table of the elements because why not? I don't even know if all of these elements exist within GregTech. If they do, I will finish up making this periodic table, but there was enough of them that I thought this might be fun. This might be, something fun for me to do and enjoy. And it puts all of the items, all of the dusts in a place where I can easily find them, because obviously you know that iron is here, gold is here, aluminum is over there. If I want lithium is element number 3, so it's way up there, and etc. I also know that some of the stuff like oxygen does exist in a liquid form, so I may put a tank of some kind there and put the oxygen in that. I think that would be kind of fun and cool to do, but I haven't figured out if I'm really going to do that. There are some like silicon. I don't have any silicon dust, so that's why there's nothing there at the moment. But you can see I've put the barrels that have the element in them, and then I've put a little fancy sign on the front to label them. And so I've got my titanium, I've got tungsten, I've got all the elements that I have. Now, over here, I was going to put the, what are they called? The actinide and the lactinide? Is it called lantinide? Actinide series down over here. But I'm pretty certain that most of those elements are not in GregTech. So it was just going to be a big waste of space. And so I started doing that, and then I thought, no, I don't want to do that. So instead, I will be putting other stuff here like, redstone, and I've got some stone dust, and I'll probably also put in some of the blended dusts like bronze or brass dust or, anything like that. But yeah, that is my storage or how I'm going to be storing things. And so obviously if I need to cook up some iron, I can come grab some, take it over to the furnace, which will of course be moved. And when I want to process my ores, I can come down here, take some iron ore. I've got another little hidey hole through here. And anyway, this is my drop off point, which stores any dusts that I haven't processed or done anything with. So, I need to make a barrel that stores tungstate dust and one for lepidolite dust. But I can drop the iron ore in there, and then you can see it's going out, and it's going down into the processing center. So if we head downstairs, la 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 la, down the stairs we go, la 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 la, across the floor we go. So you can see that these macerators are now operating. There you go. And yes, the ores as they come down, they are evenly distributed among the 4 macerators. And then as they process and turn things into the crushed ores, those crushed ores then go to the ore washing plant. And again, they are evenly distributed among these 4. And then as those get done processing, their items will go to the thermal centrifuges, and then those items will go, when they get done processing, they will go to the forge hammer. And in the meantime, any of the small dusts will get collected here, and once again, as there's 9 of them, they will get packaged up. So yes, so that's my new ore processing system. So far, I'm very happy with it. It's much better on the power, and it's also better. I had to spend a lot of time digging out some more space and kind of designing this and then redoing it and redesigning and redoing and trying to figure out the conduits and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, I believe that it's much better for it to be out of the way, and also much better as far as the power, and also it's probably a little bit more quicker, really good English, a little bit quicker on actually getting the items processed. And so you can see that it's putting items into that barrel as they get done being processed. Okay, so that's just what I've been doing. Unfortunately, it did take me a lot of time, and I didn't have a lot of time to work on this stuff. So that is going to be the episode for this week. I just wanted to show what I've been up to. I will hopefully have something a little bit more substantial for the next episode, but it may be delayed as well. I do have to go out of town for the weekend for work, and that may really cut into my recording time. I'm hoping that it won't, but no guarantees as far as that goes. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them for me in the comment section below. And if you have any, what I'm trying to say is, if you have any other ideas for me as far as what I could be doing, please let me know, because as I've said before, I am definitely not an expert. I definitely don't know what I'm doing, and I'm kind of learning as I go. And so as I hear things and see things and read things and people tell me things, I am enjoying learning and finding out new stuff. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.